My mom slapped me at Thanksgiving dinner because I wouldn't end my engagement so my sister could have my fiance. My sister smirked. Stop being stubborn. He always wanted me. You were just useful. Mom raised her hand again. None of them saw my fiance standing in the doorway. Before she could slap me again, he stepped in. Dennis did not grab her. He simply moved between us and said, "Colleen, put your hand down." My younger sister Gail was still smiling. My father Grant stared at his plate. Around the table, my aunts and cousins watched me as if I had created the scene by refusing to cooperate. Dennis turned to me. "Get your coat." My mother laughed once. "You don't understand what this family is trying to protect. Ask him why the county already thinks he lives with me." Dennis had never lived with her. He had never dated her. Until 6 months earlier, he had barely known her last name. Yet before we reached his truck, his phone buzzed with an email from the school district where Gail's daughter attended. It thanked him for submitting household verification documents and reminded him that a home visit could be scheduled after the holiday. That was the first time I understood my mother had not slapped me because she lost control. She had slapped me because I had refused to follow a plan that was already on paper. I had spent most of my adult life as the dependable daughter. I worked at a rehabilitation clinic, yet my family treated my schedule like empty space. When Gail's car failed, when my mother forgot a church promise, or when my niece needed help, they called me. Gail was 4 years younger and recently divorced. Her former husband, Owen, wanted more parenting time with their 8-year-old daughter, Lila, because Gail missed school meetings, moved twice, and left Lila with whoever answered the phone. I loved my niece, so for nearly 2 years I handled homework, appointments, lunches, and pickups. Gail called it helping. My mother called it what sisters do. That love made me easy to use. Dennis entered my life when our clinic hired his company to replace a broken accessibility ramp. He was a residential contractor who measured twice and noticed that every family call made me apologize before answering. He proposed in my kitchen while we were repainting cabinets. Holding out the ring, he said, "I don't want the version of you that has nothing left. I want the whole woman, including the part that says no." My family acted happy at first. My mother hugged him. Gail called him the good one and joked that I had finally gotten lucky, but small things started happening. The silver spare key Dennis had given me disappeared from the little dish beside my door after a family brunch. I assumed I had misplaced it. Gail began asking questions about his house. How many bedrooms? Which school district? Was the guest room on the first floor? Did he plan to add her and Lila to his health insurance after we married? My mother started pushing our wedding date back for reasons that made no sense. Spring was too soon. Summer would be hard for Lila. Fall would look selfish because Gail's custody review was coming up. "Your sister needs a stable year," she told me. "You already have a stable life." A month before Thanksgiving, Owen called and asked if Dennis and I were still engaged. When I said yes, he told me Gail had filed a statement describing Dennis as her long-term partner. It claimed she and Lila stayed at his house and planned to marry him after my engagement ended by mutual agreement. "Your mother's name is on a supporting letter," Owen said. His attorney would not let him send the filing, but he read me enough to make my hands shake. When I confronted Gail, she did not deny it. She sighed like I was making a simple problem difficult. "It is temporary language," she said. "The evaluator wants stability. Dennis has a house, a business, and no record. You don't even want children. Why are you acting like this hurts you?" My mother took the phone from her and changed her voice into the soft one she used when she wanted me to doubt my own reaction. "No one is stealing anything from you, Tessa. We are trying to keep Lila with her mother. Once the case settles, the paperwork can be corrected. You called my fiancé Gail's partner in court. Words on a form are not a marriage. Then why does he need to leave me?" "Because the evaluator may ask questions," she said, "and because Gail needs the life you can spare. I plan to confront them privately at Thanksgiving." My mother told the family I had agreed to postpone the wedding so Dennis could help Gail through her custody case. By dessert, postpone had become step aside. When I corrected her, she called me selfish. When I said no, she slapped me. Dennis heard enough from the doorway to understand that every strange email, every missing key, and every question about his house belonged to the same lie. He drove me home, changed the code on his alarm, and called the school district the next morning. The district would not discuss Lila's file with him, but they confirmed that someone had uploaded a utility bill, a signed residency statement, and a caregiver authorization bearing his name. The employee advised him to make a written identity report and contact the family court clerk. She did not apologize for hitting me. She said Gail's attorney needed us to avoid making noise until after the home visit. Then she warned me that if Owen gained more custody, Lila would blame me one day. "You are using a child to make me protect a lie," I said. My mother answered, "I am using every option to protect my granddaughter. You would understand if you were a mother. For 2 days, I could barely work." My friend Karen from billing noticed the mark near my cheek and asked, "Did somebody put a hand on you?" Her sister worked as a family law paralegal and gave me one useful sentence: "Do not argue with people who are creating records. Create your own." Dennis saved every email. I wrote down dates. Owen's attorney sent a formal request asking whether Dennis had ever lived with Gail or agreed to support her custody filing. Dennis answered through his own attorney with a sworn denial. 3 days after Thanksgiving, Gail posted a photo from inside Dennis's house. She was standing beside the fireplace with Lila, both of them holding mugs. The caption said, "Building a safer home, one promise at a time." I knew because the half-painted cabinet door we had left in his living room was visible behind Gail's shoulder. Dennis opened his smart lock app. The front door had been unlocked with the physical key, not a code. His alarm history showed the system had been disarmed with the backup phrase only my mother had heard once, months earlier, when she came by while we were carrying furniture. We called the police non-emergency line and made a report for unauthorized entry. Dennis did not accuse Gail of theft without proof. He simply stated that neither she nor my mother had permission to enter. Dennis checked the camera above his detached garage. It did not show the front door, but it showed my mother's car pulling into the side drive. Gail climbed out carrying 2 storage bins, a child's backpack, and a framed photograph. 40 minutes later, she carried the same items back out. Even then, the recording was only part of the truth. It showed them arriving, not what they had submitted or who had signed Dennis's name. We needed to know how far the lie had traveled. My mother invited me to the church holiday market where she managed the volunteer office. She said we should appear united for Lila. I went because I suspected she would reveal more if she thought I was willing to cooperate. She placed Gail beside Dennis's company banner and introduced her to 2 women from the school parent council as Dennis's future wife. My mother smiled at the women and touched my arm. "Tessa is having a hard time accepting that plans change. He gave me access because Lila comes first," she said. People looked at me with public pity, as if I were refusing to accept a breakup. My mother was not only forging a household, she was building witnesses for it. I wondered for one terrible minute whether walking out would make me look guilty, whether defending my own engagement beside a children's booth would make me seem cruel to Lila. Was I wrong for refusing to let them turn my life into evidence for someone else's case? If you think I was allowed to draw that line, please leave a like or tell me in the comments, because in that moment, I truly needed someone outside my family to say I was not abandoning a child by refusing a lie. I did not argue. I took out my phone and photographed the key in Gail's hand. Then I asked, "When did Dennis give that to you?" "Weeks ago," she said, "before or after you used it to enter his house on Monday." My mother stepped between us. "Not here." Dennis arrived 10 minutes later with a deputy who had agreed to meet him and collect the key listed in the unauthorized entry report. Gail tried to say it belonged to her. Dennis showed the deputy the matching key code from the locksmith's receipt and the photograph he had taken when he gave it to me. The public story cracked, but it did not collapse. My mother told everyone the key had been loaned for an emergency. Gail said the house photo was harmless. Their church friends wanted the discomfort to disappear, so some accepted the explanation. That night, my mother wrote in the family group chat that I had caused an emotional scene and that Dennis had embarrassed Gail in front of the church. She asked everyone to protect Lila by refusing to discuss the key. One aunt answered before the message could disappear. She had watched the deputy compare the locksmith record and collect the key from Gail's hand. "Why would police take a key Dennis gave her?" she asked. My mother deleted the entire thread, but Karen had already saved it. The people at the market were no longer repeating one clean version of what happened. Then a padded envelope arrived at Dennis's attorney's office. Inside were color copies of the documents filed in Gail's case. The residency statement carried Dennis's forged signature. A second page carried a notary seal from the church office where my mother worked. The supporting letter said Gail and Dennis had been together privately for more than a year and were waiting for me to accept the relationship before announcing it. At the bottom of the packet was a series of photographs of Dennis's house. Gail's bins had been unpacked into the guest room. Lila's school picture sat on the mantle. My coat and shoes were gone from every frame. It claimed the guest room had been prepared in early October, but in the corner of one picture was the new handrail Dennis installed in November after I sprained my ankle. The image had been taken later and relabeled. Dennis's attorney requested the original image files through the court process. Gail's attorney objected, then withdrew the objection after seeing the garage footage. Grant had spent most of his marriage avoiding conflict by becoming furniture. He stood outside holding his cap and would not step in until I invited him. "Your mother used the office printer," he said. He told me Colleen had been staying late at the church for weeks. He had seen draft letters on their home computer and heard her coaching Gail on what to say during the custody evaluation. He had convinced himself it was only about helping Lila stay in the same school. "Did you know she signed Dennis's name?" He looked at the floor. "I knew she was making papers. I did not ask what kind." He handed me a flash drive. The church computer backed scanned files onto a shared drive he could access as volunteer treasurer. He had found drafts of the residency letter, edited photographs, and a voice memo my mother saved while dictating instructions to Gail. I asked why he was giving it to me now. "Because she hit you," he said. The forgery was not enough. In the voice memo, my mother told Gail to keep using Dennis's address until the review. After Gail gained more parenting time, they would pressure him publicly. If he refused, they would claim he had misled both sisters. She believed his contracting business depended on church referrals and that embarrassment would make him cooperate. Gail had not only missed appointments. Months earlier, she had left Lila alone overnight while she drove to another state with a man she barely knew. Lila called my mother, terrified. Instead of contacting Owen, my mother picked her up, cleaned the apartment, and helped Gail create a story about a babysitter leaving early. Owen had recently learned part of what happened. The custody evaluator was asking who had covered it up. My mother was not trying to protect Lila from losing her mother. She was trying to protect herself and Gail from being exposed for lying about that night. Dennis was useful because his house, reputation, and clean history could make the family look stable. I was useful because I had been the person quietly caring for Lila whenever Gail disappeared. They needed my labor erased and his identity borrowed. That was why my mother wanted the engagement ended. Not because Gail loved Dennis. Because my existence proved Gail had never been managing alone. We gave the flash drive to Dennis's attorney, who forwarded the relevant files through proper channels. The church's attorney was notified because its notary seal and equipment had been used. Owen's lawyer asked that I appear at the next custody conference, but I refused to become a weapon against my sister. I agreed only to answer direct questions truthfully. My mother heard about the files before the conference and called me from the church parking lot. "You are going to take Lila's mother away from her," she said. "No, Gail's choices created this. Your records proved it. You could still say the files were misunderstood. They include your voice." The conference happened in a courthouse meeting room 2 weeks before Christmas. A magistrate sat at the end of the table with the attorneys, a guardian appointed for Lila, and a school attendance officer. Dennis and I waited until we were called in. Gail wore a pale sweater, and the expression she used when she wanted to look younger than her choices. My mother sat behind her with a folder on her lap. She had always believed paper belonged to whoever arranged it best. The magistrate asked Dennis whether he had ever been Gail's partner. The school officer confirmed that the residency packet had been submitted from an email account created with Dennis's business name, but linked to my mother's phone number. The notary whose seal appeared on the document submitted a written statement that she had not witnessed Dennis's signature and had not been working on the date shown. My mother's own voice filled the room, calm and practical, telling Gail where to place Lila's backpack for the photographs and reminding her to remove my coat from the hall. Gail began crying and said our mother had handled the paperwork. My mother said Gail had misunderstood her. Grant, who had been asked to attend because of the church files, finally spoke without being prompted. "Colleen planned it," he said. "I watched her do enough to know that." The magistrate did not deliver some dramatic speech. She ordered an immediate review of Gail's parenting arrangement, required supervised exchanges, and referred the suspected forgery to the appropriate office. Lila was placed primarily with Owen while the review continued. The church was instructed to preserve its computer records. "Fix this," she whispered. "Tell them I was only trying to help. You did not help Lila. You built a fake home around her and called it love." She stared at me, waiting for the daughter who always softened the final sentence. The church ended my mother's office position after confirming she had used its equipment and seal cabinet for private legal documents. Some women from the market apologized. Others only wanted details, so I ignored them. Gail lost unsupervised parenting time for several months and had to attend counseling, follow a fixed schedule, and use a parenting app. Her own attorney told her the forged records had caused more harm than anything I said. My father moved into a rental, started counseling, and sent one weekly message with no requests. My mother mailed a letter saying families make mistakes. She never wrote "I hit you" or "I forged his name." She spread her choices across everyone and called it stress. With Owen's permission, I met Lila at a children's counseling center. She asked whether I had taken her away from her mother. I told her adults were fixing adult problems, and none of it was her fault. She twisted the zipper on her coat and asked, "Was the room at Dennis's house ever mine?" "No," I said gently, "but nobody should have made you pretend it was." She nodded, and the relief on her face told me she had been carrying the lie too. Dennis and I postponed the wedding, but for our reasons, not theirs. We spent the winter repairing the parts of our life my family had entered without permission. He changed every lock. I removed my mother from my emergency contacts. We closed the shared phone plan I had kept with Gail for years. I stepped down as the automatic backup for school pickups, but I remained available to Lila through the schedule her counselor and parents approved. In early spring, Dennis and I married at the county conservatory with Karen, Owen, Lila, and a few friends present. Grant sat in the last row. My mother and Gail were not invited. Before the ceremony, Dennis gave me a small wooden box. Inside was a new silver key. "Only 2 copies, he said, "yours and mine." Months later, Gail sent a short apology through the parenting app because her counselor had asked her to name the people harmed by the deception. It was not perfect. She still explained too much, but she admitted she had taken the key, staged the room, and repeated our mother's story because she was afraid of losing custody. I did not invite her back into my life. I told her the apology belonged first to Lila and Dennis, and that trust would require years of consistent truth, not one message. My mother moved from anger to silence when she understood there was no audience left for her version. Relatives stopped asking me to reconcile once the court records and church review became impossible to dismiss. I stopped measuring loyalty by who chose a side and started measuring safety by who respected a locked door. The new key rests in a small ceramic dish beside our front door. On Sunday evenings, Lila sometimes visits for dinner under the schedule her parents built. She hangs her coat on the hook with her name on it, not for a photograph, not for a court form, because she is welcome. When the door closes behind the last guest, Dennis checks the lock, turns off the porch light, and places his key beside mine. 2 keys. 1 honest home. And nobody inside it is useful only when someone needs a lock.